Hey guys, this is James from TeaDB, bringing you InBetweenIsode number 31. So today we have a something a little bit different. So I brought out my old setup with the tea tray and with the electric kettle. So we're doing a comparison tasting, and I just want to get that water quicker, a little bit more in a timely fashion. So the TeaDB is out for this episode at least. So the two teas that I'm comparing are the 2012 Yiwu Purple from Yunnan Sourcing and the 2013 Cangyan Gufeng Yiwu. And so I've been drinking a lot of teas that are supposedly from Yiwu in May. And I'm going to add a little bit of a preface at the end of this, but or at least a disclaimer. But these two teas represent sort of what I would describe a very affordable daily drinker range. I picked up a few of the cakes of the Yiwu Purple last year when it was selling. It's gone up in price since then, but I think it was selling for about $24 per 250 gram cake then. And Paul sells this Cangyan Gufeng, I think for a little bit over $30 for a 357 gram cake. So very, very affordable teas, both of them. And one thing I'm kind of doing in this up and coming report is I'm separating the teas out more by price range and trying to describe them more sort of geared towards people depending on what they're looking for. Because things like Paul's Last Thoughts, which is also supposedly an Yiwu tea, and costs $450 for a 357 gram cake. That might be slightly off, but is obviously in a much different sort of price echelon than these teas, and would fit very different consumption patterns, to say the least. So, before I get too much onto that, let's get into the tea. And so I will say that I can't recommend more, even though I'm sort of drinking teas and being a little bit hypocritical that are supposedly Yiwu. I can definitely recommend that you kind of avoid that region craze, and the reason being it's just extremely unreliable. You can't necessarily count on tea being from a certain region. I've met a lot of people who like to buy teas by labels, and I'm going to just say you might do best if you just ignore that and let the tea speak for itself. Okay, and so I am 2 infusions into both of these. So this is the purple Yiwu on my left. Very sweet flavors. Sort of has a little bit of that hay sheng base that we are used to. Right. And this is the 2013. And let's have another smell. So this one has more of your standard granary base. It also smells sort of like sweet grain, sweet straw, is how I would kind of describe it. And cheers, guys. So it's very sweet in a sort of kind of higher note sort of a way. So a little fruity. I had sessioned this a couple days ago, and I got a little bit more smoke that time. Not getting so much of that here. A little bit of that sort of like hay-y base that I was describing. And let's move on to the next tea. The body is immediately a little bit thicker than the previous tea. Far more of those grainy sort of notes. The last one I got a little bit of hay, which is kind of in that same sort of category of taste, but this one more towards grain/straw is how I would describe it. It's interesting because when I've had this 2013 tea before, it's come across as much sweeter than it is now, and I think that's probably because this 2012 Yiwu Purple is a very sweet tea itself, and so sort of that contrast is bringing out less of that sweetness and more of like the body notes of the grain and the hay in that 2013 tea. And this tasting isn't necessarily to determine which tea is better. I think these teas are actually quite different and represent two sort of different categories that you can run into as sort of Pu'erh. Both are very affordable, and so it's more to emphasize the differences rather than being like tea A is better than tea B. And I would definitely say so is the case here. The tea B, in this case the 2013 tea, is definitely a bit thicker, so if you like that in your teas, that might be your preference. But at the same point, I think the Yiwu Purple, at least judging off of my memory, tends to steep for a lot longer versus 2013 tea, which tends to fall off the cliff at about the 7th or 8th steep. So there are certainly trade-offs to them, and that's something we won't unfortunately be able to explore because of the shorter format of these episodes. And let's do one more steep of both of these. So very grainery. Both teas are very nice. I think both teas I could definitely drink on a sort of daily basis. We'll give these teas a little bit more of a test this time. Steep for maybe 10 seconds or so. So I apologize to everyone that wants the most possible scientific test. If you really want to if you're super serious about your comparisons, do it competition style. I'm not that serious. I like to enjoy my tea as well, so I'm doing it this way. But I can't recommend doing these sorts of things enough. It's really nice to have sort of benchmark tea. For this case, I have a ton of the 2012 Yiwu. I don't know if I'd buy as much if I were to purchase it today, but it represents a really nice tea that I can compare, sort of a litmus test to compare some of these other teas against. Alright, cheers guys. So the body is definitely enhanced from the previous steep of this, and I think that probably has more to do with my brewing than anything. A lot of those sweet sugary notes, it sort of swells in the cheeks. Alright, and we will move on to tea number 2. So, both teas I would say kind of performed more or less exactly how I'd expect. A lot of sweet grain, a little bit of those hay notes coming into this tea as well. The body is just a little bit thicker than that Yiwu Purple, but it's also not quite as sweet. So, depending on sort of the profile that you're interested in, which I've stated a couple times already. But yeah, let me know how you guys like this episode, if you'd like to see these sorts of comparisons. Trying to figure out interesting ideas to just bring onto these InBetweenIsodes, which are sort of an experimental format in the first place. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Check out that Yiwu report. It will be released on a Saturday in June. I think probably the first, something like June 7th or June 14th or whatever. So one of these Saturdays coming up. Look out for it on TeaDB.org, and thank you guys for watching.